and welcome back to Bear's Reading Nook. We're doing another fun thing, and that is kind of like episode 2 of the, book podcast with my husband!
Hi, my name's Dan. I don't know if my name has ever previously been stated, so that's why I was like, you're right over there. Alright.
Anyway, so, in this podcasty type video, not video, it's not a video.
Well, we're putting on YouTube, so it is a video.
Oh, yeah, it is a video. In this podcasty-like video, we are talking about the first book in the Expanse series, which I believe is the Leviathan Wakes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember the title, I just know it's Expanse, so.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it was Leviathan something, and I know,
The names of the Expanse books are weird.
Yeah.
For the most part, because it's usually just, some, mythological thing and then another word.
Yeah, that's fair.
Leviathan Wakes, Calvin's War, Abaddon's Gate.
Yeah, that's fair.
Only one of a few of them have actual meaning. This is one of the ones that I think, the title actually tells you something, but...
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want me to kind of lead this, or... Because I wrote the outline, or... How do...
Sure, you're at that one. Let's go.
I guess just general. So we have both read the Expanse book, the first one. I read it, probably 10 months ago, 11 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a bit for him. I read it in January, and I've been trying to plan us doing this for since whenever I finished it, but we have stuff going on behind the scenes and personal life that kind of made that not feasible for a little bit.
Let's just say the Bear's Reading Nook may look a bit different.
Yeah! I'm really excited about that.
Anyway, and we have both watched all 6 seasons of the show.
Are there 6 seasons? I
Yes.
thought there were 5.
6 seasons and hopefully a movie. Is my
Wait, was the last season that short?
Yeah, that was the short season.
Oh yeah, because it ended with the hour or whatever.
Yeah, it was hour 15 episode. Unfortunately, got a bit rushed because I think Amazon was pulling away the money.
I mean, that's fair. Other things with the show that I'm not.
Show's very good.
About,
I would recommend
yes.
the show.
Show is fantastic.
I will say the first couple of seasons, rewatching it fairly recently, a month or 2 ago, don't age super... Or some parts don't look too great, and they definitely made it more melodramatic at a few points. But
yeah,
I think the sci-fi concepts and the characters still hold up, so...
Yeah.
Anyway, general thoughts. Obviously, I really like The Expanse. I've read all 9 books. Watch the TV show, hope for a movie for the last 3 books, because those are my favorite 3. I really like The Expanse. It's very good. It's very well done sci-fi, in my opinion.
So, for me, I read the book after watching the, basically, show in its entirety. So, for me, going into it, it seemed redundant because it was, following the same basic plot of that, but it was still really good. The other side of that was, for me, as someone who doesn't read a lot of sci-fi, there was just, it was so heavy, and it just, at different times broke my brain because of all the science that I could only handle, I think 10 to 15% of the audiobook at a time, so it took me a long time.
Yeah, I have a lot more experience with sci-fi, so it's kind of...
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking about thinking about reading Dune, and I'm like, that one doesn't have a lot of science, but it's just terms that you have to learn. And
yeah.
That's going to be fun for you if you do read it.
So I have to put that one on hold again, because...
Everyone wants to read it now that the movie. I'm a hipster. I read it 5 years ago.
Also because, sister and I haven't decided that we want to read it yet, because the first time she wasn't feeling it. Now this time I'm not, because I'm struggling reading, any of the 4 books that I, put as my March TBR. I'm, not even 50 pages into one of them.
Fair. I guess, like, general thoughts about Leviathan Wakes as a book. Like, it's a very strong opening.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously leaves a lot to be like, okay, what next, though?
Yes, but also I feel like as the first book in the series, and I don't know if the authors of James S.A. Corey, since it's the duo.
Yeah, it's two dudes.
I don't know if they have other previously published works as James S.A. Corey or they're separate authors.
Maybe? I don't know. That's
like,
a good question.
Previous to the Expanse.
They definitely both written things. I don't know if it was as a writing duo.
Yeah. I know that one of them had a book, I think, recently published, or there's, like, more talk about it. But, like, as the first introduction for me to the author duo, I actually really enjoyed it, and it definitely, like, you get the distinct voices of the various people, but also you get a sense of their writing style, and it's very good.
I didn't know that it was two separate authors for a long time, which is really impressive, actually, that, like, it melded together well enough. Apparently, they go by characters rather than by, like, chapters. So, one of them, I think, because there's only two point of view characters, one was Holden, one was Miller.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like that helps with, I want to say the continuity is the right word?
Yeah, that one of them could be like, hey, this doesn't make sense with what I wrote here.
Or just like, if they were to do chapters versus characters, it could sound like they have different voices.
Yeah, and that's definitely, like, Miller and Holden feel different in their narrations.
Oh, yeah.
Miller feels like a drunk noir detective, which is kind of the archetype he is.
Yeah.
And Holden feels kind of like a stupid hero.
I feel like, okay, I could be wrong, but I feel
hero.
like he has almost a god complex at the same time.
Yeah, he's got a heroic complex to him.
Yeah, that works.
Alright, so general plot, without going into spoilers. I'm trying to think.
So, how do you explain the plot without going into spoilers?
So, the Expanse is basically, and I guess we're going to jump a little into... Actually, let's jump into world building first.
Okay.
Because that's actually going to set the stage. So, in the Expanse, it takes place somewhere to be like 200 to 300 years from now. Mars has been colonized. The asteroid belt of our solar system has been colonized. And this has led to the rise of three factions. Earth, run by the UN. Mars, run by its independent government. And then the Belt, which is a loose collective rule exploited by both Mars and Earth, but it has kind of an underground rule by the OPA, the Outer Planets Alliance, that they want to, be their own thing, kind of rebel against that. And none of these three groups like each other at all.
Yeah.
And that's very important. Space travels... There's this thing called an Epstein drive that basically lets you go pretty fast, like not like hyperspace or anything, but you can get, a few weeks, or it takes like a few weeks to get out into the asteroid belt. And belters, the people living in the belt, they're really tall and lanky because they don't have gravity, so then their body just kind of stretches out, which is a real thing. Like, apparently astronauts will be, like, an inch or two taller after they've been in space for a while. Like, a year or something like that, which is really interesting. Okay, so general plot is these three groups are at each other's throats, and there's a conspiracy involving a new discovery, and Holden, one of the point of view characters, and the ice hauler he's part of the crew of, get involved in this conspiracy, and then there's a parallel story that intersects with a detective on Ceres, which is a real asteroid belt rock.
Was that like the main belt, like, hub?
Yeah, it's I think it's the biggest moon or asteroid in the solar
Gotcha.
system. And Miller is hunting down a girl named Julie Mao, paid by her incredibly rich father to find her. And yeah, that's the general plot.
Yeah. It just, okay, having read it, there's so much more to it than just that, like, little bit that it's so hard for me to figure out how to describe it.
This is a hard one to go into without spoilers.
Yeah.
I did touch a little bit on the science stuff, but this is an incredibly scientifically accurate show. Like, they do factor in, like, gravity, so, like, spaceships are built more like skyscrapers because the push from the engines would push you down and give you gravity, and when they're flying halfway through, they'll turn around because they still have nothing slowing them down, so they still have the momentum, and they use the thrusters to burn the opposite way, so then they are slowing down as they head towards the thing, which is really cool. It's honestly, like, probably the closest to how I imagine, like, things will look like in the next couple 100 years. Except, like, there's not any robots, really, or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's not, like, any, like, AIs or anything like that, which I'm fine with.
I mean, like, obviously it hasn't been shown in the books yet, but in the show there is, like, different type of techie things, but not actual robots.
Yeah, all the tech feels very believable. Nothing is
yeah.
really outlandish, where it's, like, nothing's really insane in my eyes. They have like powerful cell phone kind of things. There's delay in communications because it's going from, like, Earth to the moon. It takes like 30 seconds kind of thing, or it's like 30 seconds behind. Cool stuff like that. Cool, accurate stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Themes. Information and what to tell people is one.
Oh my gosh. I have
you
thoughts.
have thoughts about a certain character.
But spoilers. Which we'll talk about spoilers later, so we'll let you know whenever that comes
exploitation with the belt is a thing. There's some other themes. I'm trying to think. There's probably other themes. What am I thinking of?
I feel like there's other things, but like...
Found family, definitely.
Yes, there's definitely found family.
Yeah. I hurt myself today.
Yeah.
About some certain events. And I guess horror's actually a theme in this one, like...
Yeah, it does do horror.
Yeah, the first chapter is from Julie's perspective.
Yeah, which was interesting.
Was horrifying.
Yeah.
That's not most of the book, but like there is some horror element in there. So
yes, I will say it's a specific type of horror.
It's how would you describe it?
I would classify it more as body horror.
I would call it like surreal body horror.
That would be a good way to describe it. It's definitely like there are certain things explained, especially later in the book, and it to me it is body horror, but not like I'm not someone who enjoys reading about body horror stuff.
Yeah.
But this is something I could handle, but it was also like kind of freaky.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask that you put an image in here. They described something that happens as a Hieronymus Bosch painting, and there's this one artist in, I think, the 1500s that drew, like, landscapes of hell, and it's all that weird kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And I think that's a good kind of gauge of, like, hey, is this too weird and creepy for you kind of thing?
That's fair.
So I put up one of his images right there.
I've never even heard of that dude.
Yeah,
so.
I just remember someone who likes the Expanse talking about that, and I was like, oh, that's a fair point. Okay, so do we want to go into plot? Spoiler section. What do we want to touch on?
So we're doing spoilers now?
Yeah.
This is spoiler section. I'll like put potentially like a timestamp or something on the screen now, so that you can just go ahead. I'll also have that in the description so you guys can just go and skip ahead if you do not want spoilers. I highly recommend that you guys read this book because it is very good.
Yeah. So I think characters or plot first makes the most sense.
I feel like talking about characters may work better first, because then we can touch on the characters as they are specific to plot things.
So who do you want to talk about first?
Okay, so as we're talking about characters, I'm going to just have pictures of the TV characters, because that is who I see in my brain. Even though certain things are different, such as one character in the show is shorter than another character, but in the book they're actually way taller because they are a belter.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But I'm gonna have the show characters on the screen so you can know who we're talking about.
All right. So let's go with Holden.
Yeah.
I figured you'd be the first.
Okay. So Holden is originally an Earther, but he ended up somehow getting a contract on an ice hauler.
He got kicked out of the military, and then yeah.
He got kicked out. I don't remember reading that.
Yeah, he got kicked out.
For fighting?
I believe he fought against a commanding officer.
Okay, which tracks.
Yeah.
So anyway, Holden was apparently kicked out of the military, and he ended up on an ice hauler in the belt, and that is the Canterbury, right?
Yes, correct.
And so he is working on that, and I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, okay, so I think one of the most characterizing moments of Holden is that he's they get a distress signal from this one ship called the Scopuli, and they were gonna ignore it, and Holden's basically makes it so they go check on it, which kicks off the whole plot. So Holden has a very good nature to him, even though he's trying not to be heroic. It's weird because he's in this schlubby ice hauler.
Mm-hmm.
But he still wants to do good, and he also doesn't want to be a commanding officer, and lo and behold, he becomes a commanding officer. You know how plot work.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be as vague as possible currently.
Yeah.
Did something happen before they checked out the Scopuli, or no?
That's what kicked off the Canterbury stuff.
Okay, that's what I was asking, because for some reason I thought that the events were slightly different.
Yeah, the Canterbury gets destroyed by a stealth ship, which then Holden... The other characterizing moment of Holden is he finds out that the one stealth ship that attacked them had Martian tech on it. He releases that information to the whole galaxy like an idiot, which causes issues.
And, okay, so this is a repeating topic to the point where...
It's his thing.
It gets to the point where there's another character that's basically are you sure you want to do this? And he's uh-huh, and the character is just no, are you sure you want to do this? And he's uh-huh. And then the character's no, are you sure you want to do this? Shaking their head no. And Holden's yeah.
Yeah, Holden is weirdly naive. He's very naive through the book. And I think his character journey is kind of growing up and realizing certain things, his relationship with Naomi.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of idealized her, but eventually kind of abandoned that in the terms of seeing who she really is, kind of thing, and that's how they start their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Or him towards the end being maybe releasing all that information wasn't a good thing, kind of.
Yeah. Also, I feel
but he's still heroic because he was willing to almost sacrifice the Rocinante to save Earth towards the end, which
yes.
So he's still a heroic person. He's just smarter about it.
I feel okay, so part of it, I feel part of his, I guess, willingness to release the information is because, one, he is an Earther, so he, in at least my brain, he trusts Earthers in some capacity, maybe not fully, obviously, because he was fighting with his commanding officer, whatever. But he also works with a lot of belters because he's working in the belt.
Yeah.
And so he has that, and, like, the only people that he's really not interacting with are the Martians, and so I'm wondering if part of the reason why he, like...
But then he has a moment with the Martians when they get picked up by the Donager.
That is true, but, like, prior to that, like, I can't remember exactly when they released the information, but I think it was prior to the Martian ship coming.
Yeah, it was.
So... what was he expecting to happen?
Okay, and this is where show and book I may be blurring together and I don't remember which came from which. At least in the show, he released the information partly as, if Mars kills us, then people know why, kind of thing.
I feel like that was also in the book, but I could be wrong.
But I like that everyone's like, no, Holden, this was maybe a bad idea. And like Miller in the story just like straight up calls him on it later, is like, hey, you are basically causing a war with your reckless actions. Like,
oh yeah,
your ideals for why you did it aren't wrong per se, but you need to be strategic with it, kind of. And then a good way to jump, unless you have more about Holden.
No.
And then Josephus Miller, the drunk space cop.
So I honestly like his character.
Yeah.
I think that it was well written, and like you get the vibe of him.
Yeah.
He like wears, is it an actual fedora
I
or is
believe
it
was
like
a fedora.
He wears a fedora. He's kind of
Milady.
like, I don't know how to explain it other than
when he finds Julie, he just went Milady.
oh my gosh.
That would be amazing. Sorry.
I want to say something, but it's major spoiler, and we haven't even talked about the plot.
I mean, I'm kind of jumping all around here. Some of these
Protomolecule.
Protomolecule.
Which we'll explain in a bit.
Yeah.
So I feel like they got the noir like detective down, because at different points I feel like I just heard like the like stereotypical like noir music in like the old timey shows, you know, like where they have like the voiceover of like the detective and he's like writing down notes or like talking about a meeting or something. Like I just got that vibe. But he is good.
Yeah.
There was one creepy part that was just weird. Okay, so, he is tasked, like, Dan said, with finding, Julie Mao. The issue is, it's basically, like, kind of a kidnapping thing, or, like, that's what they're calling it.
Yeah, he's supposed to kidnap her if he finds her.
So she is an adult, and, she was from Earth and ended up, like, kind of coming to the belt.
And joining the OPA.
Yeah, and joining the OPA. And so her father's not happy with that and wants her back. And so he took that job, and basically she's just completely missing, and he can't find her. And over the course of him trying to find her and, like, kind of getting into her life to figure out where she may have gone, he starts to fall for her.
Yeah, and there's quite an age difference here.
The age difference didn't bother me. It was more of like...
I took it more as, like, being inspired by her, because, like, Julie Mao is kind of a girl that's like, I'm not gonna take crap from anyone, who left literally the richest man in the or left her family, which is one of the richest families in the galaxy, to join... was basically like a civil rights movement / terrorist group. And yeah, but it does kind of blur that line towards the end.
I was gonna say, it started off to me as like
admiration
on Miller's part for Julie, but then it kind of at some point just morphed, and I don't know where that line is.
Yeah,
but it was weird.
Yeah, it's all weird. That's one of the questionable aspects. And Miller's kind of character arc is one basically dealing with his loneliness, which he meets Holden and other characters of the Rocinante crew, which we'll talk about the Rocinante in a little bit, and kind of becomes a found family with them. And then him also finding kind of a reason to keep going, which he basically imprinted on Julie Mao as his reason to keep going. But then after certain reasons, he does keep going on, finding other reasons to keep going, which and also he's incredibly cynical, and I feel like he becomes a little less cynical towards the end. Like he's just like, Holden, trust me, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and like, and he's like, Julie's totally in here, kind of thing. Which the cynical part of his brain probably was telling him, no, that's dumb, but no, it was right. So,
Murder Cuddles.
Amos Byrne. Amos Byrne is one of my favorite characters. Murder Cuddles is what the TV show calls him because, like, his actor is so cuddly looking, but also so scary.
Yeah, he could mess some people up.
Yeah.
And he does.
But Amos is kind of a sociopathic person that is very good at violence and very good at fixing the ship, but also has, like, a almost tender side to him.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. Like,
he's the kind of person that, to me, if you don't know him and you're kind of like an outsider to him, then he would be scary, but like once you're like his people, he'll protect you. And so he very much is that way with...
Sorry, there's a parallel with one of the layer books where he talks about the tribe gets smaller and the tribe gets bigger.
Gotcha.
Where he's all about, it's just about the tribe kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, like, that especially comes to play with Naomi, especially because he basically, even though Holden is, like, the commanding officer at that point, like, kind of, like, he's taken over. Captain. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Even though he's the captain, Amos still views Naomi as his boss.
Yeah, and Naomi's kind of like his guiding light, because Amos has, like, no sense of morality, but he trusts Naomi to do the right thing, so he'll follow Naomi's commands, more or less. And so Amos doesn't really have an arc. He's just in this book at least, he's just kind of a really interesting character that I like.
I love him so much.
Yeah, and then we have
Alex,
who also doesn't have a ton of, like, things to do, but he's a space Texan.
He's basically a space cowboy who is, like, the...
Pilot.
I was like, the driver. That's a word, but not the right one.
Yeah, he's a retired, like, shuttle driver, and he gets to drive, like, a warship through the rest of the book, so it's kind of like, that's basically like, hey, I got to drive, like, a little prop plane previously, and now I get to drive a fighter jet.
Yeah.
And so he's excited about that. He's just a friendly guy that loves lasagna.
Yeah, and, like, I think even in the book they, like, give him, like, a Texan or, like, a country kind of accent.
We both listened to the audiobook, and I think Jefferson Mays, I think, is the narrator. You can look this up. I want to say it is. He's fantastic. I really like his voice characterization for everybody. They feel very well voice acted.
You, like, had me listen to a little bit of the voice acting for a character that shows up, I believe, in book 2, Avasarala.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, the way that they do her character is fantastic.
Yeah, Avasarala and Bobby are going to be high points for the next book.
Bobby's in the next book.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, most of the big characters are introduced.
Also, did you say that Alex was a Martian?
I did say.
Okay.
So, yeah, the nice thing, the crew has someone from each one of the groups. Amos is an Earther also, so 2 Earthers.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Oh, and they also have Shed.
Oh, Shed!
Shed. Shed is dead.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about Shed because... early-ish in the book, I don't know percentage-wise when that happens, but he just basically gets his head blown off.
Yeah, it's so sudden, and I believe I would need to do some research, but apparently the Expanse started off as like a RPG game that one of the authors made, and apparently they had a lot of characters initially, and then they kind of fused some of them together, and I think, like, Shed's character, like, the player had to, like, leave or couldn't do the campaign anymore, so that's why he dies so suddenly and so violently.
But I mean, like...
It's realistic.
That... Okay, so another reason why I like this book is because they're not afraid to pull punches and just, like, off people that, even if you haven't had them around long enough, like, they're still there.
Yeah.
And, like, you care about them. Like, okay, going into it, I knew Shed was gonna die. I didn't know when, and so I kept waiting for it, and even then, I was still like, oh my goodness, that just happened. Like, I think I backed up a little bit to just, like, see how that happened, because I think it was, like, a rogue shell or something.
Yeah, it was a, railgun shell.
Yeah.
Tore through the room that they were in and him right in the head. And
yeah.
He's dead, just instantly.
Which kind of sucks, because he was their medic.
Yeah. But then they got a ship with an auto medic, so...
Yeah, which is nice.
That would have been real awkward if Shed was still around, because they'd be like, well, the auto medic will fix us, and Shed's just like, oh.
Yeah. So is Naomi?
Yeah, I had two others after Naomi, that I was going to bring up. Naomi, it was going to be Fred Johnson and Julie Mao.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously it makes sense for those.
I thought I was going to do Dresden later.
Yeah.
But Naomi is a belter, and she and Holden eventually hook up. She's a very competent engineer, understands ships very well, and so she does a lot of things, and also way smarter than Holden.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she was the one to, like, Holden, don't send out that message, and he's like, I'ma do it. And she's kind of guarded about her past, which in later books you find out why.
She has every right to be.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's completely justified in that. But yeah, she's generally good-natured, does the right thing, but, like, wants to be smart about it. I guess on the continuum of, like, naive hero and cynic, you have Holden on one end, and you have Miller on the other, and Naomi's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. She is very smart. And she actually ends up being the, like, second in command.
Yeah.
Under Holden, and she knows what she's doing. She's fantastic. Awesome. Love her. Also, she's the one character that I briefly mentioned earlier that in the book is actually, like, way taller than Holden. And in the show, she's somehow, like...
She's pretty short.
Yeah.
She's, like, probably, like, 5'2".
But also...
What fool would date a woman way taller than them?
It's me.
Yeah, Kara's significantly taller than me.
Yeah, I'm, like, close to 6 foot. He's, like, 5'9"?
5'8", 5'9", somewhere around
Something
there.
like that.
Yeah, so... I thought of that joke in my head, and I knew we would get there at some point.
Can we go off on a slight tangent?
Sure.
Just so I can say that, like, Naomi's actress is super gorgeous.
Yeah,
like, super gorgeous.
Yeah. Also, Belter language.
Oh, yeah.
So, Belters have their own, like, it's called Belter Creole, and it's, like, their own language. And I like saying words from it every now and then, like Basmong or Beltaloda.
Yeah. I will say there is, at least for me, there was, like, a little bit of a learning curve trying to figure out what they said, and even then I still don't know. But, like, at the same time, I like that because, like...
Yeah, it felt pretty realistic in terms of the language.
And, like, with Miller, there's, like, at least one person that he has conversations with, and so you can piece together sort of what's going on, but you may not get, like, 100% accuracy as far as what's being said.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So then, Fred Johnson, one of the most generic names I've ever heard.
Yeah. So he is the leader... Or is he a co-leader?
He's a higher up in the OPA.
Okay, so he is a higher up in the OPA, and he is running What?
He's running Tycho Station, which builds it's like an engineering kind of station. It builds stuff. And currently it's building the Space Mormon ship, which is one of my favorite concepts.
Which was originally called the Nauvoo.
Yes.
But later is called the Behemoth, and we will get to that at some
Medina
point.
Station.
Huh?
It's called Medina Station later.
Oh,
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Somehow I didn't connect that was Medina
It has
Station.
a journey, that ship.
I mean, that's fair.
But anyway, so he's running the OPA, or he's high up in the OPA, and so Holden and friends, after some events, come to him, and he's kind of like their patron, and almost like, weirdly, a father figure to, I guess Holden maybe a little. I kind of got that vibe. Holden and his, like 4 dads and 5 moms or whatever he has.
Yeah.
Because they took a bunch of DNA from, like, this group, and then they made Holden out of it, which is interesting as a concept.
Mm-hmm.
And, sorry, that was a detail that I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, Fred Johnson also, did they talk about what he did previously?
They, sort of. They did mention the Butcher.
Okay, yeah, he was a war criminal for Earth that killed a bunch of Belters, but now, as like recompense, is working with the Belt and has rose through the ranks, which is actually it's an interesting character. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't really have much else to say about Fred Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of, like, spotlight in this book. I believe as the books go on and the story progresses, he'll have more, like, scenes.
Yeah, he does. And then Julie Mao. Meow. Julie Meow.
Anyway, so Julie Mao, we already touched on, is the daughter of James...
Or Jules Pierre.
Jules Pierre. Okay, I was like, James didn't sound right.
Which is a big shipping company through the solar system, probably like the biggest, so think like Jeff Bezos in space.
Spazos. Anyway, so we already touched on she ran away from Earth and her family to join the OPA. I lost my train of thought, so go.
She's in... she means very well and has like a kick butt kind of attitude. I'm not going to take crap from anyone. And I can see why Miller was like, I believe in her kind of thing. Like, because she's, even though you only get a little bit of her in the book, she's charismatic. And
yeah. But you also see her determination.
Yeah.
It never, like, specifies what, but there is something that happened in her past, and basically she decided that she was going to learn, like, Taekwondo or, like, some form of self-defense. And she does, and she, like, I think was...
Body's a guy. Like,
she was, what was it, like, up to, like, black belt?
yeah.
And she ends up using that at some point, and like Dan said, Body's a guy.
Yeah.
She's
cool.
Fantastic.
Alright, so plot. We covered the characters.
Okay, so basically, the book starts out with Holden and, like, his crew on the Canterbury, and they are on their way back to Ceres?
Yeah, they're going to
Ceres. With, like, a giant ice block, and they get the...
Because Ceres will use that as water. Because, water's hard to come by in space.
And they get the signal for, I believe, the Scopuli?
Yes.
And Holden and friends decide that they're gonna go... Well, Holden decides that Holden and friends are gonna go.
Yeah, Holden reports it, so then they have to go check it out, kind of thing. Because the captain was basically just like, hey, we have a deadline kind of thing, we're just gonna ignore it, someone else will find it at some point, kind of thing. And Holden, with his good nature, is like, no, we're gonna log it, so then commanding officer sends Holden, Alex, Amos, Shed, and Naomi on a little shuttle to check out the ship. And then they discover there's been a stealthy boy ship there the whole time, and it nukes the Canterbury, and everyone else dies, including Holden's then-girlfriend, Ada, on board.
Was it a girlfriend, though? Or were they just kind of
Oh, they were breaking up, that's right.
They were breaking up, but I don't think they were actually girlfriend
They were
boyfriend.
at least had something with each other.
I feel
Besides
like at
just-
best they were friends with benefits.
Yeah, that may have been it. Or, like, a no strings attached kind
Yeah.
of situation. But yeah, Canterbury gets nuked by this one ship, later called the Anubis. I'm just gonna call it that, just for...
Oh, yeah.
For simplicity's sake. Holden's like, okay, why would someone set a trap because the Scopuli was transmitting this and there's no one on board?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? What? And then he sends out and then the Donager, the Martian flagship, and Mars has an incredibly powerful navy, is coming in to check out what's going on with this, and Holden sends out his message. They found, Mars has stealth technology, so he's like, that was a Martian ship, and they found a Martian transponder on the Scopuli, so he releases that. And then war happened.
What was he expecting, though?
He wanted the truth out there.
Okay, yes, but legit, what people are gonna hear is Belter's ship, which was carrying supplies,
Got blown up by Mars.
got blown up by Mars.
Yeah. That's why people later on in the series rightfully call him on. Or
in
the book rightfully call him on that. They get picked up by the Donager, get interrogated by the Donager, and then the Donager gets attacked by a bunch of ships. Same stealth ships. There's more of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they start boarding the Donager. Cool. Both in the show and
I forgot that they boarded.
Yeah, both in the show and in the book. I really like this fight sequence. It's really cool.
And roughly around that time when they're having that fight is when Shed gets his head blown off.
Shed gets his head blown up by a stray hit, unfortunately. And they're being guided by a Martian Marine, I think named Lopez or something like that. I don't know if that's show or book. Or both.
I feel like they were with a group of people, and Lopez may have been one of the guard type people, but there was also a captain of sorts that was with them that was leading them out.
Yeah, I think it's different in the book. It doesn't much matter. Anyway, leads them to, there's a small little Corvette ship or a couple Corvette ships in there. One of them called the Tachi. And they escape on it. Alex flying it. The Martian, the Marine with them, passes away shortly after. And so they leave with the one ship. They're like, where do we go now? Mars will want to, and the Donager explodes. It self-destructs, and it takes out all the other ships with it. So, basically, they've been in 2 catastrophic ship events in the past, week or few days kind of thing, and they're like, where the heck do we go now? And they go to Tycho Station where they meet Fred Johnson.
Yeah, which is because Fred was like, hey, you are free to come here, you are safe, we will help fix things up, and I think they also offered to give them a new transponder code or something,
and
so that it wouldn't look like a stolen ship.
Yes, because they're flying a Martian warship. And so they rename it the Rocinante, which is an allusion to Don Quixote's horse. Mm-hmm. Don Quixote, the heroic knight that tried to fight windmills, kind of fits with Holden as a person. Naive but well-intentioned. So yeah, the ship's christened the Rocinante. They get sent to the Anubis, I think.
Did they get sent to the Anubis, or did they get sent to Eros? Or no.
It's Anubis first.
No. Wait, I think they got sent to go pick up the person.
I thought that was after.
I don't know. Talk about Anubis first, and then we'll talk about
so they
Eros.
go to the Anubis, and then they discover that there's some strange goo on it, and it appears to be weird, and it ate the crew.
I thought that was a Scopuli that...
The Scopuli got... The Anubis boarded the Scopuli and took all the crew, including Julie Mao.
Yes. Oh, that's right. The first one was from not the Scopuli.
Yeah, and when they turn on the drive of it, or the nuclear reactor, suddenly the goo starts breathing and doing stuff, and they're like, okay, let's blow this up, because we don't like this.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most reasonable takes in any show I've seen, or show or book. Like, I would blow that thing up immediately. So they nuke it. And I guess let's skip over to Miller, because this is where they're gonna... So Miller is hanging out in Ceres, following up on leads. There's some riots that happen where all their riot gear is stolen. There's criminals that are disappearing, so it's like...
kind of weird, like, what's going on with that?
Ceres is being weird right now. He gets fired eventually.
Yeah, so basically because he keeps looking into what happened with Julie and not doing his actual job, since his boss basically took him off that because it's like, we don't need this anymore, blah, blah. But since he kept looking into it, he got fired because of it.
Yes.
And then continues looking into it.
Yeah, he does it on his own time. And so something interesting is that because she's an OPA operative, and it's heavily implied that the police force that fired him is on the take from the OPA, and that's why he gets fired, because he's looking into, hey, she was doing something secret with this ship, the Scopuli. What was that? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean...
So he's interested in that, too.
I'm pretty sure Anderson Dawes,
Yeah.
like, head of the OPA, was in a meeting where he got fired.
Yeah, he...
So...
Yeah. And so then Miller basically is just like, well, I'm gonna go try and find her. Last thing he discovered about her is she was on her way to Eros.
Yeah.
Which is another asteroid. And so, serendipitously, that's not a real word.
Serendipitously?
Sure, whatever.
Basically, at the same time, they end up going to Eros.
Yeah, and the Rocinante crew, so, all of them decide to go to Eros also because they are also hunting the one person who lived from the Anubis and the Scopuli, whose name was, like, Lionel Polanski or something like that.
Yeah.
It's Julie. And so... Did they have a gun battle?
The gun battle happened in the
gun battle happens. The context is different in the show. Earth sends a hit squad on them.
Wait, in the show?
Yeah,
or?
it's that one douche nozzle Aaron Wright sends it.
Oh, that dude!
Yeah, that dude. Anyway, he sends a hit squad on them in the show.
I don't remember the context of that. I just know that, like, things were off and Miller was just like... I don't think that they had officially met, but then all of a sudden Miller just, like, shoots people because he sees that they're going to shoot them.
Yeah, he, like, saves them from the gunfight.
Yeah.
And so they kind of have, like, an uneasy alliance of, like, okay, we're both after the same person for similar reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They walk in, discover Julie's dead, and she is covered in this weird goo thing. Like... weird kind of like crystals almost and like black tendrils of things.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't touch anything.
Okay, so one difference here from the show versus the book is the color of the goo. Also kind of how the goo work. Or
yeah,
like
the
how
goo work a little different.
Yeah. But in the show, and I get why they did this, it's like almost like a blue iridescent kind of like color, whereas in the book it's like black.
It's
so very hard to see and stuff like that. And like I love the look of it in the show, but I also get why it's different because you can't really like if you're trying to do space show, it's very hard to do accurate like black color like in the book.
Yeah. It does make sense, but it's one of those very reasonable changes that I think looks a whole lot better.
I'll, like, put a picture in of the, like, blue goo so you can see.
So, I don't remember when the name Proto-Molecule was dropped. I think around then.
Probably around then, yeah.
So, basically, the Proto-Molecule is an alien substance. It is from outside our solar system. And it was on this one asteroid named Phoebe. Which was kind of like its egg almost, like it got sent here for some reason. It got stuck in Saturn's rings for a very long time, billions of years ago, like billions to millions of years ago, and some Mars people, along with this company called Protogen, discovered that, hey, this asteroid has some weird things in it. So they killed all the Martians, Protogen, and then basically started this war to do experiments because they realized this extraterrestrial substance is important. And
also,
the Scopuli was going to intercept a ship that had the protomolecule on it, and that's how Julie Mao got captured. So yes, Scopuli got captured along with Julie Mao, and then she gets infected because the protomolecule kind of gets out during all that hubbub, and everyone on the Scopuli and the Anubis gets eaten by it, and that's why it was all on their engine and stuff. She gets infected, she goes to Eros and dies from it because it's very damaging to your body.
Yes. Also, I think the whole thing that happened with Phoebe is like kind of shown mostly, I think, through Miller's perspective.
Yeah.
On like, it's really subtle. It's like news updates that he's like hearing about or like reading or whatever. And so that was really cool.
Some of the Martians mention is like, hey, our whole research team just suddenly is gone off of Phoebe. Like, they mentioned that, so that's why the Donager was in the region to check that out, which is another cool. Like, oh, that makes sense. Everyone's acting pretty reasonably. And so, yeah, the protomolecule and this company, Protogen, which made these stealth ships, is causing this war as a reason to do some experiments. Which brings us to the Eros experiment.
Ugh.
Which, basically, Eros is full of millions of people. Protogen basically fakes like a radiation leak or something like that, or
Protogen, as well as all the criminals and the riot armor was taken from Series.
So Protogen recruited the Series criminals and also stole the riot gear to have them basically corral people into pens, blast them with a whole bunch of radiation, and release the protomolecule on them to see what will happen, more or less.
Which...
Turn them into zombies.
Not good!
Turn them into zombies, basically. That vomit more protomolecules.
Which, that is actually very different from what happens in the show, from my understanding.
Yeah. So the show, basically the protomolecule just kind of eats you. It doesn't, like, possess you or anything. In the book, it, like, possesses people. They go around infecting people. And... everyone, or Holden and Miller, get stuck together and blasted by a whole bunch of radiation. So they're dying.
Yeah.
And everyone else is on the ship waiting for them, kind of, or hoping they'll get there, kind of thing. They get into some gunfights with some of the criminals. See just awful things of the protomolecule breaking people down, more or less, into blobs, kind of thing. It's basically like an alien bioweapon, at least as far as they know. And then they eventually escape. They get cured of their radiation. Holden will never have kids again.
Yeah.
They get cured of their radiation. Then they learn that Eros, like, there's basically like sensors and stuff transmitting to somewhere. It's called Thoth Station, and it's run by Protogen. And so... and Fred Johnson, DeRossi, and Miller on one of the OPA's little like landing ships goes, attacks it. Has a cool fight scene where the Rocinante fights two of the stealth ships.
Yee.
Only one in the show, which is actually like one of the times where they made it less epic.
Interesting.
Yeah. Beats them both up because Alex is actually a really great pilot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then they land, kill a bunch of the scientists there, capture a bunch, and then they meet the person who ran the Eros experiment, which, keep in mind, has killed millions at this point. Dresden, which I will deal more with at the end, but basically is like, hey, the protomolecule is an alien weapon. We don't know anything about it. It can rewrite genetic material and change it. We need to know what this does because we're hopelessly outgunned, kind of thing. Which makes sense, and then Miller shoots him in the face and everyone gets mad about it.
I understand both parts. Like, I understand that it's alien tech and we like, in that case, should figure out what it do, what its purpose is, and all that stuff. But I also get Miller, because he legit had just watched the entirety of Arrow Station, as well as the hired hands that, like, basically, what's it? Protogen noped out of there and left all the hired, like, goons to die.
I think something we didn't mention. Protogen is owned by Jules Pierre Mao, so Julie's dad.
So, her dad is responsible for her death.
Yeah, which is a sad, tragic kind of thing. Even though, Mao's an awful person.
Oh, he's so bad.
Yeah, he's a bad man. Anyway, so there's kind of like some drama about Miller going too far. And basically, Eros is still doing whatever, and people can hear, like, voices coming from it. And so they're like, we're gonna knock it into the sun. So they hijack the Mormon ship.
Also, as a side thing, so, after... That's what I was talking about. So after the save from Miller at wherever the heck they were...
Eros?
No, before Eros. Wait, was it Eros?
That was on Eros. Yeah.
The hotel thing?
Yeah, that was a hotel on Eros.
Yeah, so after that, he kind of ended up hitching a ride with the Rossi.
And they bond, become a kind of family.
Yeah, and then after he kills Dresden, Holden's like, nope, like, you're not allowed anymore kind of thing. You went too far. So then he ends up being, I think, security for Fred at that point.
Yeah,
or, like, soon around there for the whole... thing that they're planning, which leads into what Dan was saying.
Stealing the Mormon ship and launching in at Eros to knock Eros into the sun. And some complications with that, so they need some, like, people to land on board and put some, like, nukes down. Miller volunteers because he's almost, like, suicidal at this point, like...
Yeah, there are, like,
he's lost everything.
Lot of... Like, there's a lot of lead up, but you can tell that something's off with him after, like, the Dresden thing and, like, after losing Julie and all that stuff. You can tell something's off. You're not entirely sure where it's gonna go unless you're me, 'cause you watch the show first.
Yeah. So Miller gets stuck there while the Navu's heading there. Holden and him kind of reconcile.
Did he get stuck, though?
Yeah, because he's on there when...
He let them go.
Okay, maybe that's a difference in the show to the book, because I'm thinking more of the show. He gets stuck on there with the nuke.
I think what happened was he told the one dude that he had been talking to leave and that he was staying.
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
I think he purposefully chose to stay.
Okay,
because they needed someone...
The show made it so his nuke would go off early unless he stayed with it, something like that?
I think what happened here was, like, he still had the button that Naomi, like, configured, but I think he chose to stay as a backup plan.
Gotcha. But anyway, the Navu's heading in, and suddenly Eros moves, breaking all laws of physics. And then Eros starts moving real fast towards Earth. And they're like, oh, this is the extinction of humanity coming.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Because if that hits, that's every human on Earth dying, and the rest of the solar system kind of needs Earth to survive also. So it's like, oh, we're all gonna die, kind of thing. Earth launches like a bajillion nukes at it. Holden hijacks, or Miller's basically like, hey, I'm hearing Julie's voice in the chorus of voices of the proto-molecule inside Eros. I'm gonna try and find her. And Holden was like, we can't risk it, but then eventually Miller's like, you gotta trust me, Holden. And he lets him, basically, Holden has Naomi hijack all the nukes and send them somewhere else.
Yes, because was it Martians or the UN?
The UN.
So
the UN's very mad about this.
Basically, was just gonna launch all the nukes that they had at Eros as
hoping to destroy it before it hits Earth.
And that's what Holden hijacks, and so the UN is like furious.
Yeah,
at
they
this.
were like, "We're gonna kill you," Holden kind of thing.
And he's just like, "Give Miller time." Yeah. Also, at this point, I feel like part of the reason Holden wasn't sure is because I think radiation was still bad there, potentially. Also, the amount of like air in Miller's suit could like be messing with him.
Eros is a big place.
Also,
full of who knows what.
Also, I don't think he took his meds, and so that could also affect him because since the radiation from earlier, both Holden and Miller had to take meds for the rest of their life to, I think, ward off cancer? Yeah,
basically. But anyway, so Miller goes through this weird kind of phantasmal Eros, like, it describes like weird fireflies and like, I think there is some glowing blue inside.
Yeah, there's glowing blue.
And like, it's clear that like Eros has absorbed the people because he hears like their voices and stuff.
Also, random hand skeleton things.
Yeah, or like weird, like it's basically like broke them down and using them for its purpose.
So it talks at one point about like I want to say like kind of like an undulating or like moving mass of some kind that was entirely black, but then you see like ribs and like other different bones just like moving about in it, and it's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
There was also talk of like hands, I think, climbing up on Miller's bomb or Miller himself.
Yeah. But then it describes like iridescent glowing light and like weird or like these little fireflies floating about of blue, which I'm like, sounds beautiful. So it's like equal horror show, equal beautiful.
Yeah.
And like it'll just switch on a dime, which is super interesting. Anyway, he finds that there is kind of a physical Julie in here. And since she, I guess, important plot point, she had the only sample of protomolecule left in her, so the Eros experiment came from the protomolecule that she was infected with. But she kind of infected it, it sounds like. So basically her will is in it, and she's kind of controlling Eros, and she's heading back home, which is Earth, but she doesn't realize that she's, like, not alive really anymore.
Slash that the protomolecule is using her to destroy things.
Yeah, and so Miller's like, "Hey, could you drive this into the sun?" And she's like, "No, it won't let me. The work is not complete." Which is ominous. But he's like, "How about Venus?" And she's like, "I can do Venus." So then they crash into Venus and Miller dies.
Yeah, like, I didn't want him to die. It was really sad.
Yeah. So that all happens, and then the Rocinante more or less joins the OPA as kind of like a gunship for Fred. Miller is unfortunately dead, and so is Julie, but Julie's been dead for a while, and then our story wraps up with something's going on Venus.
Yeah.
What's the protomolecule doing? Kind of thing. Which
Round
is...
two.
Round two. So, I guess we did kind of talk about the protomolecule. I had that as its whole section, but it's really interesting as a sci-fi concept.
Like, oh, yeah.
Just this, like... I think they do describe it as, like, it's a tool designed to do something they are not sure what, you find out later, that breaks down organic matter and repurposes it. Also, and it's kind of nightmarish, but also really fascinating.
As a concept and as alien, like, tech or alien thing, I love how vague it is.
Yeah.
Because of the vagueness, it almost puts you that much more on edge when it, like, is featured, like, on screen or, like, in the book.
Like,
and, like, when it does something.
When Eros moves and yells, like, with Julie's voice.
Yeah.
Like, that's so creepy to me. Like, moves in a way that's not physically possible. Like, that's really creepy to me. But, yeah.
Also, just, like, the fact that the protomolecule takes on the voices and transmits them, like, it doesn't make sense, like, to people hearing it, because it's, like, all at once, but, like, it's almost like it's trying to find a way to communicate.
Yeah, like, and I also like that, like, hey, this thing is 100 billion years old, where it's like, oh, And another implication, I think, that Holden says, like, that may have been heading for Earth initially, and it just happened to get caught, and
Which, if
it basically would have annihilated our tree of life, more or less, like, which is a terrifying concept. Basically, if it succeeded at its goal, we may not have existed. So, which is really interesting. But anyway, Dresden is the only really named villain in this, besides Mao, who we don't really get to interact with, so I don't really have anything to say. But I find Dresden really interesting because what he's saying isn't wrong, necessarily. He has a few interesting points of, like, hey, when the protomolecule can change genetic material, maybe this could allow us to actually, conquer the stars, kind of thing. This could be the hope for humanity, which is like, that's valid, and also he's like, or this is a weapon which we do not understand, sent a billion years ago, potentially to kill us. We need to understand it, like, we're fighting gods, potentially, in his mind. But the thing, so, like, his rationale is correct, but his actions are monstrous. Killing millions of people on Eros is not justified. And I think characters that have completely reasonable motives, but actions or methods are horribly wrong are the most interesting kind of characters or villains. And also, I think that Miller shooting him in the head is absolutely justified.
Oh, yeah. Also, one thing I love is just how much build-up there is to that, and then just, like, how quick that is, because
legit, like, everyone else is, like, kind of buying on to what he says, because, like, one of the points that he says is, like, millions of people have already died, you can't undo that, but the research we have is still valuable, so just let it continue and we'll see what happens. And basically, like, Fred Johnson's making a deal is like, alright, we'll let you do this, and then bang! Dresden's dead, Miller shot him. And Miller's line about it was, I didn't shoot him because he was being crazy. I shot him because he was making sense.
Yeah.
Which is, like, fair.
Also, I feel like he may have specified that it was also because everyone was buying into it.
Yeah. He was basically like, oh, they're gonna let this guy get away with Julie's death and millions of Belter's deaths, which also, Miller was the only Belter in the room, so,
was
like...
Was Naomi not there?
Naomi was not there, she was on the ship.
Oh!
So, like, it made sense, like, hey, this guy just genocided a bunch of my people. Screw him.
Yeah, like... Miller is definitely valid, but I also see...
Sorry, I was just looking at it. Time.
Yeah, it's an hour long.
This is gonna be a long boy.
Well, I mean, okay, the Expanse book is like 600 to 700 pages per, so
yeah,
it's gonna be long. But yeah, I also see Dresden's point.
Yeah.
But I also see why Miller definitely shot him, and legit, I think just how much of a build-up, and then, like, how quickly that, like, it didn't fizzle, but, like, how quickly, like, the reaction happened from Miller was just kind of, like, funny, but also, like, it added to the oh my goodness, like...
Okay, I could be misremembering this, but I feel like it was a Holden chapter that Dresden got shot, and then we recapped with Miller shooting him. Is that correct?
That sounds right.
As I said, it's been close to a year since I read the book.
That sounds right, and it would make sense because that would also be when Holden was like, "You're not going back with us," and so you would see like Miller's like side of that and see that he's not disappointed or like he's not surprised, but he is kind of sad about it.
I guess one of my major criticisms is that Holden's reasoning for being mad is pretty dumb, where it's like, we don't just get to execute people, and then you think about it, Dresden just executed millions of people.
Yeah.
Pick a
But he's a scientist, he can help us learn all these things. I don't know why I said it that way, but yeah, he's a scientist. He can help us learn all the things.
I mean, we have Cortazar, who's a show exclusive character. The one scientist that had the Progen scientist that has like empathy taken.
Oh, yeah.
Willingly, actually, which is interesting.
Was that the one that they locked in like the room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, he is in the books. He's just much later.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you'll meet Cortazar.
Yeah, I just gotta actually
Get that far.
I gotta get that far. I gotta actually read a book, but like
once you get to book 6, then after book 6 will be completely new to you.
yeah, and I'm definitely excited, and like I'm excited to read The Expanse in general because I want to see the differences of the book to the movie.
Which, by the way, differences was one of my things, so I guess that's a nice segue.
Yeah. Obviously, color of the protomolecule and potentially like how that goes about doing things.
There's much more drama in the show, like interpersonal drama. Like everyone feels like a bit like drama queens, which I get.
Mm-hmm.
Like you gotta up that and for TV, but it didn't. None of you felt too out of character about it.
Did Holden have like the one chick at the beginning? Like,
yeah.
did
Ada?
that drama happen in the show?
Them kind of breaking up, or
Yeah.
yes.
I do not remember.
They
that.
did whitewash her though. She was black in the book, and she was white in the, which is
That's dumb.
yeah, that's a little crappy. Not gonna lie.
I mean, notice crappy Alex's character.
As a crappy as what?
The person who was Alex.
Oh yeah, that's a no. I guess so. Alex's character or Alex's actor, Cass Anvil or Cass something. I don't remember. Anyway, he's a monster. He's not a good man. He's so good at Alex though, and it's so conflicting as an actor. Like Alex is so lovable, and the actor is so awful as a person. Havelock, which was Miller's partner, gets a lot more in the show, and he has a cute relationship with a Belter prostitute that I actually really liked, where she's teaching him Belter Creole and their hand language.
Havelock is an Earther that no Belter trusts, and they kind of just talk smack about him, and in the book, nothing happens, like, at all to him ever. He doesn't like have like a little like teacher-student relationship with the prostitute as far as learning like the language or anything. He ends up transferring and is part of Protogen.
Yeah, he joins Protogen, and Miller's later like, hey, you may want to leave that company.
But Havelock is also key because he gives Miller information to, I think,
was that about Thoth Station?
Thoth. I think it was Thoth.
Okay, yeah. I forgot about that detail. That's a good... let's see. Other differences. I mentioned that I think the Rossi fights 2 ships at once, which makes it a bit more awesome in terms of fighting. Mm-hmm. The fighting in the show is, like, much more long range. Like, they don't get in super close kind of thing. But that's... You know, those are changes for cinema where I'm like, I'm glad that the ships are within seeing range of each other. That's much more interesting. Whatever changes are there?
I mean, the fact that Havelock doesn't get attacked.
Yeah, he doesn't get staked through the chest.
Which happens in the show.
A rivet. Which is pretty brutal. He lives.
And I think that was why he left, right?
Yeah, I think so.
In the show. And in the book, I think he just got another job offer or something that later ended up getting him in Protogen, I think was what it was. He ended up going to a different station, I want to say.
That sounds right. They had the show had Diego, the one dumb young Belter.
No, Diego was there.
Oh, he was in there?
Yeah, that was the one.
Okay.
That was the one Belter he was talking to.
Oh, I feel like they flushed him a lot out in the TV show. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think he may have had more character in that, but that was the one that was like talking to him and wouldn't shut up.
But pretty accurate plot out. Oh, they added the one spy guy on the ship, the guy that broke into their ship with the camera eyes, that gets eaten by the protomolecule that they let die. That's a thing that happens.
In the book?
No, in the TV show. This is an entire plot. Oh, and biggest change is TV show covers Avasarala.
Yeah.
Who is the UN under Deputy Secretary, basically third in command of the UN.
Yeah.
And her be interrogating Belters, trying to figure out what's going on. She ends up interacting with Holden during the whole nuke thing. She ends up saving, or like, trusting Holden, I think? Kind of thing?
Yeah.
So she gets established one book early, which I think is a good change for the show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, Avasarala is a treat. I love her, so
She's
more of her
fantastic.
is great.
So, I don't know how to explain her any better than she is an older woman with a foul sailor's mouth.
Yeah.
But, like, she is determined to figure things out, and, like, she doesn't always go about things the best way, but she has a purpose in doing things. Yeah. Later, at least in the show, she does have someone kind of, like, keeping her accountable and, like...
Yeah, she gets better.
Making sure that she's doing things in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest change, is just Avasarala getting in there one book early.
I freaking love Avasarala.
Yeah. You do not mess with Avasarala.
Where are you going with this?
Wherever I goddamn like.
But yeah, I think that's generally Expanse. How long have we been going?
Close
to an hour.
An hour and 20.
Dang.
So, almost 2 hours.
So I guess,
wait, not 2 hours.
So yeah.
Sorry.
Closing thoughts, I guess.
The Expanse is fantastic, and
yeah.
I really like it. As someone who doesn't read a lot of sci-fi, there was a little bit of a challenge for me to get into it, but, like, once I got into it, it was really good. I will say, like, sometimes you may need a brain break if you're like me, but it's still very much good. I highly recommend the series. Read it, watch it, do it.
I will say you may struggle with Prax's chapters next book, because he thinks like a botanist. So
yeah, because he's science botanist.
Yeah.
Plant scientist,
yeah,
which
he's
is
plant
botanist.
scientist, so that's going to make that... He thinks like how...
Wait, Prax shows up?
Yeah.
I didn't remember it came that... Like, okay, so basically, for me, something that I, like, didn't register or realize is, like, this show, like, does a lot in, like, short periods of time. So, like, in my brain, I thought that Eros was going to be, like, book 2.
Yeah.
And it happened in book 1.
I think that's also because the TV series ends with them leaving, or, like, first season ends with them leaving Eros. Halfway through is when Eros crashes into Venus, and then it jumps into Caliban's war for a half season, and then the next half of Caliban's war for half season, and then half a season, but all of Abaddon's Gate. So it's weird. And then the next 4 seasons, the Amazon seasons, are 1-to-1 books.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird.
But anyway, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah. I highly recommend both the show and the books. Obviously, I've only read this one. Dan highly recommends the entire series.
Yeah. Honestly, the last 3 books are my favorites of them all.
Which goes to a whole another thing, which is Laconia, right?
Yeah. Laconia gets so interesting for me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Laconia is about.
You get weird dogs and other stuff.
Yeah, I just need to read all the things.
This is gonna be dumb, but, like, there's a short story of the Expanse called Strange Dogs. And I looked up Strange Dogs because I was trying to find a picture of the thing. And it was just, I forgot that that's just a normal thing that people look up, so I just saw a bunch of derpy dogs. I think that's really cute.
Yes, that's fair.
Anyway, I think that's I have no thoughts besides I think you should read The Expanse if you like sci-fi. Honestly, I feel like it's pretty accessible for sci-fi.
It is.
I've read things that are less accessible, I guess.
To me, it is. It just, like, when they're, so I think the first actual chapters where they talk about the Epstein drive, and that
Yeah.
was like a lot to take in, but after that it was pretty like easy to
Pellet going,
handle.
engine, go fast, vroom, vroom.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, thanks for being my
Yeah.
awesome special guest for this second episode.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'll maybe be back for the next.
Let's be real.
For Caliban's War.
You will probably either be back for that or another book.
That's fair.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe at some point we let people pick what we're reading.
Maybe.
I mean, that would be kind of fun if they want us to do a, like, in-depth
Yeah.
discussion. So, I guess if there are any book suggestions that you want us to talk in-depth about, let us know down in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video, and you will hopefully hear Dan again in the next podcast. Who knows, maybe he'll show up in a video at some point in the future as well. But, that's all for this video, so bye!